Well, today we are beginning our December sermon series that we're calling That's a Wrap. When I think of the word wrap, I generally tend to think of wrapping paper. Now, I have a question for you today. I want to know how many rolls of wrapping paper are in your house, okay? Now, some of you don't know the answer to this because you don't know where she keeps them, okay? But I want you to venture a guess. How many of you think you have at least 5 rolls of wrapping paper in your house? Come on, raise your hand. Let's just be honest before the Lord, okay? How many of you think you possibly may have 10? Just raise your hand, okay? Keep them up. If you're working, keep them up until I pass you up. How many of you have 20? Keep your hands raised. Oh, come on, keep them up. I see a few. 25. Anybody got 25? I got a couple people. You guys need deliverance from the spirit of wrapping paper. I'm just telling you. Well, I have a rare opportunity. My wife's not feeling well, so I can preach about whatever I want, and unless she watches it online, she's never going to hear it from me, at least, and I'm going to deny it if you tell her. But my wife has this new, she's done this for a few years now. My wife loves wrapping paper, okay? And I think wrapping paper in between Christmas is just taking up space, okay? And I'm like, let's use it for kindling. You know, I'm just like, because she loves to buy it new every year. But not only that, but here's what she does. She came up with this really cool idea, and I've got 3 in my family that are in the room, and they'll verify this. But some years she wraps everybody's gifts, and all of their gifts are wrapped with one type of paper, okay? And then the other one, it's a completely different type of paper, so you don't even have to look at the tag. You just look at the first tag, and then you know everything that's yours, okay? And do you know how much wrapping paper you have to buy to do that? I mean, it's... You know, and I just like, when she says, hey, would you go put this away? I want to put that wrapping paper, out in the garage, ready to take out to the curb. But that's just my family. I know yours is perfect, and you don't ever have any of those issues. So I'll just share my issues with you to make you feel better about your family. Is that all right? Can we do that? All right? You're all going to go home today, man. Those people got issues. I'm telling you. It's true, we do. But this is an important time of year in many respects, it's our businesses. It's important. If you work for a retail business, okay, they depend on the sales at the end of the year. It's like 30%, okay, of the year's sales happen between, and it's not between Good Friday anymore. Now it's Thursday night, okay, Thanksgiving night, and the end of the year, okay? I'm looking out over the room right now, and I'm seeing some people that work at the hospital. I'm saying, boy, I hope they don't get 30% of their income at the end of the year like that. Yeah, we're having a 2-for-1 knee replacement special, I hope they're not doing that. Jason, they're not doing that, are they, Jason? Thank you. He's shaking his head no. At least I'm going to believe that he's shaking his head no. But I think of, okay, wrap and wrapping paper, but that's not how I'm using the word wrap this year. I'm really using the word wrap as the phrase wrap it up, and that's a wrap. It's an acronym. Did you know that? It means wind, reel, and print. That's what the word wrap means. Wind, reel, and print. It was a word that was used in the movie making business. And so when they were done with a scene, the director, when he felt that they got it on film good enough, he would say, that's a wrap. And so that meant it was time to wrap up that reel and go ahead and print it, that they had come to a place where it was completed. So we're going to look at this phrase, wrap it up right, today, and we're going to use that kind of a definition to the word wrap, and we're going to look at the end of 2017, and we're going to look at how we're doing, and I want you to realize that we have gone past Thanksgiving, okay? We are hurtling toward Christmas. I mean, it's out of control, okay? Do you realize that 3 weeks from today is Christmas Eve? Okay? Some of you, that just sent a cold shiver up your spine because you don't feel prepared, okay? Now, I don't want to make you feel anxious, but I do want us to understand that the year is coming to a close. And I know I've heard this before, and some people say, if I can just make it through the holidays. Have you ever heard anybody say that before? If I can just make it through. I want to challenge that kind of thinking. Maybe it's not just that you've heard other people say that. Maybe you said that yourself. But I want to challenge that kind of thinking here today. You see, December is not just a month. And I want you to think about this with me. In our culture, we have taken from Thanksgiving to Christmas, okay? And we have made that all part of preparation for Christmas, okay? You know what you know what I'm saying? Are you with me? Okay? And December has that month, that's become throwaway, okay? Because all it's about is Christmas. You don't think of anything that's really happening during that time that's not just getting ready for Christmas. Now, I love Christmas. My family would joke and say, you know, everybody knows in your family there's somebody that doesn't love Christmas as much as everybody else, or at least they think, and so they call him Scrooge. My family teases me and calls me Scrooge, but I love Christmas. But we have taken the month, and what we have done is we have said that, you know what, it's basically don't expect anything to happen other than getting ready for Christmas in the month of December. And I really want to challenge that today, because I want us to understand that December is an important month. It's the last month of a year. And it's the last month before you begin the new year. And we all know how important the new year really is. We love getting to that place where you turn the page on your calendar or you open up that brand new date book and you've got just this new, fresh, untouched year before you. December is a conclusion. In musical terms, there's a term for December, and it's called DC al fine. And what it means is you go back to the beginning and you play it all the way to the end. Well, that's what's going to happen when we get through Christmas and we move through to the end of the year. We hit DC al fine, which means we go back to January and we play it again all the way to the end, and it's like a lap on a track. And so the question becomes, how do we finish the lap that we're on? As we prepare to wrap up this year, we prepare to unwrap next year. I love Daniel chapter 2 and verse 21, where the prophet says, He, meaning God, changes times and seasons. So as we look to close out this 2017 season, there's some questions that we can ask. Here's the first question. Can we intentionally do things to help bring 2017 to an excellent conclusion? The second question is this: can we still intentionally do something that will help turn this year around? For some of you, that's what you're looking for. I'm looking for a turnaround. I'm looking for a fourth quarter comeback in my life. What can I do in order to change things? And thirdly, can finishing this year well help to position us for the upcoming year? The Apostle Paul writes to the church in Corinth, and he uses a sports metaphor. I want to read it from 1 Corinthians chapter 9, beginning at verse number 24. He says, "Do you not know that in a race all runners run?" Duh. In a race all runners run, but only one gets the prize. Now, the Corinthian church understood exactly what Paul was talking about because they had these types of races. These were the prelude to what we call the Olympics, but there were games that took place, and they would take place in Corinth in a stadium, and that's exactly what he's referring to. They know specifically what it is. He goes on and he said, run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last. But we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. Friends, I want you to understand something as we embark on this December. We are all running a race. We're running a race. And December is the last stretch before the end of the lap. So what can we do? We all have different start times, you know. You realize that? If you were born in July, you have a different start time than me. My start time just happened to be December. I snuck it in right before the tail of the end of the lap. But we are all on a race. So what can we do in order to make the best of the end of this lap? Let me give you a few things. Number one, don't celebrate too early. For some of you, this has been a great year, so what can you do to capitalize on that fact? That's really what I want you to walk away with. If this has been a great year for you, what can you do to capitalize on that? I've told you before that I have learned, I've learned this app called YouTube. If you've never used YouTube, it's just, it's hilarious, okay? And YouTube, if you type in something on the search, you can watch endless videos on that particular subject. And go ahead and type in a search for YouTube and look for victory celebrations or something like that, and inevitably you will find that there are those that begin to celebrate at the end of a competition, and they celebrate prematurely. I think my favorite one was of a cyclist, and he's coming to the finish line, and it's been a long, hard race, and he raises his hands in celebration, okay? And I've ridden no-handed on a bike a lot of times. No problem. I've never wiped out. This guy raises his hands in celebration, and the pavement is wet. And guess what happens? Boom. He literally just wrecks right in the middle of the road, and the second place guy goes right beside him. Another one that I loved, a guy is finishing what I presume is a marathon, and the street is packed. The people are literally just lined up, deep groups of people, and he is running to the finish line, and he looks behind him and he sees no one, and he starts high-fiving people, and he is literally just eating it up. And as he's high-fiving people, a guy comes around the last bend and he sneaks past him, and the guy realizes at the last second. And he tries to reach out and hold the guy from crossing in front of him. What a dope. Just cross the line yourself. We can't celebrate too early. The Bible talks about a story like that. It's a parable that Jesus tells in Luke chapter 12. And I think this has got something here for us today. Beginning at verse 16, it says, he told them this parable. This is Jesus speaking now, telling this story. It says, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. Okay, now that's not irresponsible in and of itself. But look at verse 19. And I'll say to myself, self, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then you will get what you have prepared. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. Now you say, what does Jesus mean by this parable? Does Jesus mean that I should not strive to be successful? No, that's not what Jesus is saying at all. But what he does say is that in the midst of that, we dare not celebrate too early, because the fact that we are succeeding is not due in and of itself just on us. We don't need to celebrate too early. We need to be careful, and we need to honor God with our lives as we find ourselves having success. Make sure that we honor God and don't begin to celebrate too early. Paul says in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, he said, I have fought the good fight. I have, what's the word? Finished. Paul said, I've crossed the finish line. When Paul wrote that, he was writing that knowing that execution was ahead of him. He said, I've done everything that I can do. I have finished my race. I've fought the good fight. I've finished. I have kept the faith. Friends, we have to be careful not to celebrate before we cross that finish line. We shouldn't get caught up in our own success. We need to keep moving forward in this life and in our relationship with God. Let's not coast it in. Let's put the pedal to the metal and say, God, I'm going to keep doing what you want me to do. I'm going to keep moving ahead for you and for your glory to bring honor to your name. So if 2017 was a good year for you, if it's been a year that you look back on and say, man, this has been a good year, don't celebrate too early, but instead do as Paul said and press on to the finish line. Get all the way there. Honor God every step of the way. Next, maybe for you, this year's been a little different. I want to tell you, never give up. Never give up. It doesn't matter what this year's been like, never give up. Let me tell you a story that I heard. It's actually an ABC News story from Fresno County, California. It's from 2010. 16-year-old young lady. Her name was Holland Reynolds, and she was a member of the cross-country team. Their team made it to the state finals. Earlier that year, her coach, Jim Tracy, was diagnosed with ALS. And that is a terrible disease, Lou Gehrig's disease. And they had determined that this was going to have to be his last year of coaching. And the kids on the team really wanted to win the state championship for their coach. And so they all were ready to give their best effort. That morning, it was a really cold morning in California. And this young woman, Holland, 16 years old, with only a mile left, or half mile rather, left in the race, she was in second place. Their team was going to win the state championship. Within 100 meters of the finish line, though, something began to happen to Holland's body that she was unfamiliar with. In her mind, she thought she was running full speed. But as you watch the videotape, you see that she had slowed to barely a walk. And then 5 meters before the finish line, she collapsed. She rolled around on the ground for just a few seconds. One runner passed her. 2 runners passed her. She's 5 meters from the end of the race. 3 runners passed her. 4 runners passed her. In all, 24 runners passed her in just a matter of seconds. Her coach comes from the sideline. He cannot aid her in any way, and he leans over to find out if she's all right. She said there was only two things going on in her mind at that time. The first one was this: I was confused about why my body wasn't working correctly. And number two, I wanted to win for my coach. And so this 16-year-old girl struggled to her knees, and she crawled the last 5 meters. And when the points were all totaled, her team won the state championship. Why? Because she didn't give up. It's December. You think to yourself, if I can just make it to the end of the year, I'll survive. Listen, I don't care if you've got to crawl to the end of the line. Keep moving. Don't ever give up. Don't stop. Continue on. I want to read from Hebrews chapter 12. But before I do, let me just say this, that Jewish Christians had left Jerusalem, and they were under persecution from the Jews in Jerusalem. That's why they left. Many of them wound up going deeper into the Roman Empire. And so in Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews is writing to Jewish Christians who are living in the city of Rome. And Hebrews was written between 67 and 69 AD, and this is after Nero has already burned much of the city of Rome and blamed it on the Christians, okay? Are you with me? So this was a very difficult time. And some of these people were incredibly discouraged. But look at what the writer says in Hebrews 12:1. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. These are Christians who are seeing some of their friends and family members who are being tied up, dunked in oil, and hung on a post in Nero's garden in order to provide light for his chariot races at night. He said, run with perseverance the race that is marked out for you. Perseverance is steadfastness despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. Maybe you say, Pastor, that's what I find myself in. I find myself in a situation where right now it is incredibly difficult for me, and I don't know if I can make it even to the end of this lap. Well, I want you to know that you can make it. You can persevere. You see, the Christian life is a long-distance race. It's not a sprint. And some of those Hebrew Christians were tempted to drop out of the race because of persecution. They thought of abandoning the cause of Christ. Why? Because they were under such terrible persecution. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, the Apostle Paul writes in verses 8 and 9, chapter 4, verse 8 and 9, he said, we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. And in Galatians chapter 6, he says this in verse 9, let us not become weary in doing well, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Do not give up. God has not abandoned you. You may feel like you are on your hands and knees, and like the finish line is 5 meters away, but there's no way you can make it. Do not give up. Hebrews talks about a host of heavenly witnesses that's cheering us on. Go, go, you can make it, you can do it. There is encouragement for you to continue on. Even if you say, I don't have anything left in the tank, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Maybe it's been a difficult year. Maybe you just want to check out. It'd be a lot easier to just check out and just mentally say, you know what, I'm just going to wait for the new year. I'm just going to start over fresh. Listen, I want you to understand something. So much can happen between now and January 1st, where God can encourage you. I want you to understand that. I don't want things to get worse. If you just say, you know what, I'm going to forget about this year, and I'm not going to worry about it, I'm just going to coast my way through this year, you realize you get deeper in the hole? You realize that? Emotionally, relationally, financially, spiritually, you just start getting deeper in that hole. And I want you to understand something. How you finish out this month of this year will determine how you begin the first month next year. Don't give up. Don't give up. Continue working at it. Keep fighting even if you have to crawl across that line. And number 3, finish well. Finish well. You say, Pastor, it sounds like you're really preaching about a funeral. No, I'm not. I'm just preaching about this year. Let's finish well. Whatever God has called you to, let's finish well. I'm going to end with a story. It was 1992 in Barcelona, Spain. It was the semifinals of the 400 meters at the Olympics. The crowd packed into that stadium of 65,000. Lane 3 was a man named Derek Redmond. Derek was a young man that was running for Great Britain. On the backside of that race, one time around the track, on the backside of that race, Derek felt a searing pain. He was in position already to qualify for the finals. This was the semifinal heat. He was going to qualify for the finals. He felt a searing pain in the back of his right thigh. He knew immediately that he was in trouble. He pulled up as quickly as he could. He fell to his knees as all the other runners went by. Immediately, the medical staff started running toward him. And Derek, instead of waiting for them, he struggled back to his feet. And he began to hobble. One step after the other, putting almost no weight on his right leg at all. And from the backside of that race, he began to move forward. The race was already done. The winners were already prepared to move on to the finals. And then the crowd realized, hey, this guy's not done yet. Derek said to himself, I've got to keep going. I will not leave this Olympics without finishing this race. He began to go through the final turn, hobbling one step at a time. And a disturbance came from the crowd. Everyone's attention was fixed, but then there was a disturbance from the crowd, and his dad pushed his way through security. And he ran out to his son. He said, Dad, I've got to finish. And his dad said, we'll do it together. And he grabbed his son by the waist. And together, one step at a time, they came around that final bend. Now the crowd begins to cheer. People begin to cry. The whole place is going crazy. They get right up to the finish line, and Derek's dad steps away from him so that his son can cross the finish line all by himself. That moment really defined Derek's future. He has been an encouragement to so many as he travels the world and speaks, because he finished well. Philippians chapter 3. Paul says this in the second half of verse 13, "But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." I don't know what your 2017 has been like, but I will tell you this: it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Maybe it's been a great year. Don't trip up now. Maybe it's been the worst year of your life. Oh, it can all turn around in the last month. Why? Because you can finish well. You can finish well. So as we move through this end of the season of this year, how can we intentionally do things to help bring this year to an excellent conclusion? Well, don't celebrate too early. That's pretty important. But also we need to realize that we shouldn't give up, no matter how bad it's been. We need to keep moving, continue strong to the finish. You say, "Pastor, can finishing this year help position me for the upcoming year?" And I say yes. If you finish well, next year can be the best year of your life. And I want you to understand that God desires you to finish well, and God desires that your next year will be an incredible year in your life. And you may look back at 2017 and you may realize this has actually been a year of transition in your life that you needed to go through, that God needed to do something in your life, and He accomplished it through great difficulty, through even great sorrow, maybe even tragedy. But I want you to know that God has a purpose for your life. He has a plan for your life. And one day, we're going to cross that finish line. And my prayer, my desire, is that each of us will hear those words of Jesus. "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Would you stand with me all across this place and out in the hub as well? Would you bow your heads with me? Father, I pray for those that are here today they're just sensing your blessing. They're so excited that 2017 has been a great year. They're totally looking forward to 2018. I pray, Lord, that they will not celebrate too early. They will not give up. They will set their sights on next year. They will honor you in that process, and they will be just incredibly blessed in the new year. Father, I pray for those that have struggled through this year. They want to leave 2017 as far behind them in the rearview mirror as they possibly can. In fact, if I never think about 2017 again, they may think I'll be happy if I never think about it again. Father, I pray today that you'll bring encouragement to their spirit. Father, I know that you have a plan for their lives. I know that you desire them to not give up, to never quit, never give up. And Father, I pray that we will look at the end of this year and say, God, how can I finish well? That we will honor you with what we have left. That this month is not a throwaway month. That it is a month where we can say, God, I want to finish well. I want to do the best that I possibly can so that I can get the momentum at the end of this year and position myself that next year I'm starting it not from a hole, but I'm starting it ready to go, because I believe that next year is going to be the best year of my life.
Thank you for watching the message today. If you've accepted Christ as your personal Savior, or if you have questions about your personal walk with Jesus Christ, we'd love to help answer those questions. We've prepared something specifically for you. It's a 5-day devotional called Walk by Faith. We'd love to give you this as our gift to you today. Please contact us using the information provided for you on the screen. May God bless you.